can I ask you to, so I think that, and you tell me whether I'm answering your question or not. Maybe if I, why I think there's a miscommunication maybe between the two, because I think that Locke and all empiricists, including Quine, right, would admit that we have abilities to learn concepts. But here's the difference. But they're very general abilities. So they're essentially some maybe principles of associations. They're very generic rules, right? So for example, abstraction. So you observe different dogs, and then you leave out abstractions. At least in one sense, means that you leave out the specifics of dogs. Some dogs have a long tail, which is brown. Some dogs have a short tail. But what the general concept should maintain are the essential features of what a dog is. And this is, everybody would, all empiricists would agree that this is a capacity of abstraction that we have, and we learn a lot of things through this capacity. But it's domain general means that it can be applied to dogs, it can be applied to geometry, it can be applied to numbers, it can be applied to your knowledge of God, because in the case of knowledge of God, for example, empiricists would say, well, you have the concept of a mind, you have the concept of intelligence, you have a concept of something which is bigger, and you put these ideas together and you get the idea of an omnipotent being, mind, right? Whereas Descartes would say that, no, this idea is innate because you cannot build it. But anyway, so to go back to your question, I think that Locke is fine in admitting that we have the ability of thinking, and we have the ability of thinking, of producing general ideas by abstraction. But he wants to deny that you have abilities to develop specific ideas like triangle and God, which depend on which do not depend on abstracting principles or anything like a general mechanism for learning. But I'm not sure I answered your question. Maybe you want to refine it or ask me again. No. So that's different. So it's like saying, that's right. So that would be absolutely fine with any kind of empiricist to say that you have this ability to reason about anything, and that's innate, but that's fine. I mean, there's some things we don't learn. Like there's things, well, look, it's very obvious. Like, when you teach logic, there's some, informal logic. There's some kids who are just natural. It comes natural to both of us to reason in a certain way. But it can be perfected, obviously. Or for example, do you really have to learn that? I mean, there are impressive studies in cognitive psychology that there are infants of 3 months old infants who put to test. I mean, of course, they cannot talk, but they. So, for example, if you have, can I? So one of the tests is this, right? So they habituate them, and they go like this, right? And so this is 3 months old, right? They assume that the object doesn't disappear behind, which is it's not something you learn, right? I mean, you don't see it. Why should you expect that it appears on the other side if you don't already believe that this is an enduring object, this is the same object, right? And they seem to know this at 3 months. They can't tell you, but if for some reason you lift this and the object isn't there, they stare. And that seems to suggest that, how they learned this, right? This is different from just innate logic, which is more of a way of reasoning that it seems to be common to lots of us, at least. But this is, in this case, you can say that they have an innate idea of an object, not the bottle, but of an enduring object. Sorry. So nativists like Descartes would be willing to say that, of course, only Jerry Fodor, have you ever heard of him? So he's a cognitive scientist. He's one of the fathers. He's now in Beijing?
Yes.
He's not here?
Yes, he's not
He
here.
was.
He is. He's invited to the Peking University, but he's not.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so when he comes, you should go to, right. So he was one of the founders, I mean, still alive. He's 75, so, and he's in good health, and he was one of my teachers. And he claims that all ideas are innate. He's got some crazy argument for that. But he claims that even the notion of carburetor, engine, is innate. Everything very specific. And he's got a way of defending this. But Descartes and Spelke and Leibniz didn't think so. I mean, they were thinking of more like some so the concept of, they wouldn't call it, early modern philosophers wouldn't call it a concept of an enduring object. They talked about substance. So substance is something which remains the same throughout the changes. So Descartes has this wonderful example in the second meditation where he says, he's asking, how do you know? So where does your knowledge of what a body is, a physical piece, a piece of matter comes from? Does it come from the senses or it comes from the mind? And if it comes from the mind, it means the intellect, so it's innate. And he gives you this wonderful example, right? He says, well, suppose I take a piece of wax, right, like beeswax, right? And I put it in front of you, and you touch it and smell it, and so it's got a certain color, a certain shape, certain texture. Then I put heat next to it. The color changes, the shape changes, the odor changes, and I ask you, is this the same wax? And you say yes, right? I suppose. Well, most people would say yes, but the point is that how do you know it is the same wax? Because all the perceptual properties have changed. So that could not, the sensory experience could not give you the identity of the object over time. So it must be this concept of substance that you have in your mind, which gives you the endurance. So it's more specific ideas. So in order to be a nativist, you have to be committed to not just to the view that you have some innate knowledge of logic, but also specific ideas.
Question? The question. I'm a little bit confused by your response to the objection based upon the principle of awareness. So I'm just trying to classify my own thought. If I'm talking nonsense, just stop it. So the situation just you have one situation. Descartes comes and says, okay, let's talk about innate ideas. Question, what are they? So the answer is, well, maybe they are some kind of implicit knowledge. Okay, implicit knowledge. So they are already there in the mind, also they are not explicit. They are even in the mind a very little baby, for example. They are there, but they are not explicit. Okay? So, then John Locke comes and says, okay, dear Renatus, you are talking about implicit knowledge. You tell us that the mind is somehow transparent and so on. In fact, there is no ideas in the mind which we are not aware. Such ideas, they are not such ideas.
Right.
They can be. So, and your suggestions, okay, Descartes maybe give the following answer. Right. We are aware of such ideas, but we don't have this so-called second order forms of such ideas. Okay? So my problem is, how can this be a solution? Because at this point, Locke would say, okay, so Descartes, you agree with me. You are agreed with me. You said that, okay, we are aware of this ideas. But if we are aware of these ideas, so we have to accept that such things are even in the mind of very little baby. They appear in mind, and this is not acceptable.
Right. No, I think that when Locke is talking about, so I didn't go through all the slides carefully, but I think that that's a good question, a very good question. I think that what Locke is saying, and I may be wrong about that, but when there is textual evidence for this, but so these are not just textual issues, but theoretical issues also. But I think that when Locke is expressing the awareness principle, he talks about ideas being either ideas which are in the mind. You either aware of them currently, that means that you're actually thinking of them, or you have been attentively aware of them. So I think that what Descartes is saying is that innate ideas are like ideas that you're never attentively aware of. You're just aware without being attentively aware of. So you couldn't, if asked the question, say, yes, I have it. So you can't, if you're not aware that you have it, you can't. You know, because what Locke is saying is that, look, if the nativists were right, then every child should know that 2 + 2 = 4. But they won't be able to tell you. But, I mean, there's a way in which the child may be tacitly aware of it, have the principles to, in fact, the child, I mean, Matteo, our child, is able to certainly distinguish 1 candy from 2, because he knows that 2 is more than 1. Or he can do 1 and 2, but he doesn't have the mathematical principles, right? So they, according to Descartes, he has this tacit knowledge, he's not able to express it now, and he may never be able to express it. I mean, I'm talking about this, I mean, I hope he'll be able to express that knowledge, but in that sense.
So I think you have a good example. How do you observe your child to learn something?
Right. Mystery. The reasoning is amazing. You are just so Matteo. So we have a child who's 3.5. So you know, there is this view that the children are not much more than vegetables, right? They're just watching. But he does these things really fast. To say things like at one time, this was about he's 3.5. It was about 8 months ago. So I said, he was in the car with me, and he went to the front seat, and he said, "Mommy, I want to drive." And I said, "Well, you can't." But I explained everything to him. If I can, I like to explain why I say no. So once he asked me, "Mommy, why do you always say no?" Well, because because I you know, I have to explain. So I explained to him, well, you know, because you're still too young, you cannot reach the pedals, and you're not 16. When you'll be 16,
Yeah, 16.
Mommy, I am 16, now I can drive. Yeah.
Doesn't understand what meaning of 16.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, the reasoning.
So how did he
So
learn,
modus ponens, modus stone. Yeah.
how did he learn numbers? From 1, 2, 3, 4?
Well, that's a huge debate. So so here's the thing, right? So for example, Mattel may be able to write. So, for example, Rochelle Gelman, I mean, this is a simplification of her view, but she believes that if kids can order things in a series, even if they go 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, 16, they're still in a series, they're still counting, right? In a sense, because they have the concept of a series, but there's a strong evidence that that is not sufficient for having the concept of number, because, well, at least we still, well, some people claim there is strong evidence. She denies actually that this evidence is strong, because she has other experiments. But so, for example, so you may have kids who are able to very well count to 10 at 3, between 3 and 4.
Because they have a 10 figures.
Yeah, and they go to preschool, and with the mommy, every time we go up the steps, I go like 1, 2, 3, 4. So you learn. It's just like you learn, yeah. But then here's the thing. So you say, oh, let's count. And then you give them a bunch of frogs, and you say, can you give me 3 frogs?
No.
Can you give it like 5, 1? Can't really pick the number from.
Yeah.
And so that seems to indicate they don't really have the concept of number. They can be good up to, so that's the other thing, is that actually they're pretty good at picking 1 or 2 or 3 objects, maybe some even 4, but not 8.
Why not 8?
Because, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, they think it's a limitation on the ability to track the number of objects. So it's too much. But that's why, I mean, I don't see, I mean, lots of, not anymore, certainly not Jerry Fodor, but I mean, it's just essential to work with developmental psychologists to inquire about this question anymore. You can't just sit down and think of in-principle arguments for nativism or empiricism. Words for ideas. Well, he has an entire book on language and the third book. So the way he thinks is that first we form the ideas, which are general. So we have this. We start with ideas of the senses, right? With perceptions of taste, color, and then geometry, shapes, extension, and so the primitives are just percepts or sensible. Then we build general ideas. So language comes later. First we have ideas, and then the word is just a label for, so like if you think about, again, so think about banana, right? So the way he thinks that we learn the idea of banana is that the child observes different examples, and he learns that it's an object which is sweet, of a certain color, of a certain shape, and eventually he forms the general idea, and eventually by 2.5 or 2.5, he learns that the name for that object is banana in English, banana in Italian, banana in Spanish, and in Chinese, chang chang. Right, okay. So, sorry for mispronouncing. Right. So the fact that you eventually, use this word for a particular idea doesn't mean that that idea is innate, because you actually have learned it. Right. But you're right. I mean, if you were a Jerry Fodder who believes that concepts are just syntax, like words in the language of thought, then...
Did you attend the conference this morning?
What did I wasn't at the conference this morning.
You
No, because I have Matteo.
I see.
That's
This morning, the scholar gave a talk about
who? Adam? It was Adam Sennett
No.
or somebody else?
No, Adam, but the other person who gave us a topic about the sociality of language.
Mm-hmm.
So the language is social.
Yeah.
So we use language just according to conventions
Right.
or customers and so on. So that means we couldn't use language without any conventions. So
Any
how do you explain that?
Right.
So how
We
could
can. Could I explain that?
Yeah.
We-
Yeah. Do you think it's right or wrong? Or
That language is just a construction.
yeah. Conventional.
Convention. What is it that it's a convention?
It means
No. I mean, what was the view exactly? I mean, I don't think that anything is. I think that language, lots of linguistic knowledge is innate. Now, the particular words, the very fact that your word for banana is different from mine obviously depends
they're
on the
changeable.
different.
So they're
Those are
changeable.
changeable. But I don't think the syntax or the logical form is just a construction. But what?
yes, I see
Yeah.
what you say. Yeah.
Right.
What is, but actually, I think that maybe there are some differences or contrast between your opinion with the
Oh, yeah.
other one.
What was the view exactly? What was the? So everything is a social construct. I don't believe these views. Yeah.
That's the point from the perspective of
Yeah.
language,
Right.